Our country itself is sick, that it's lost its sense of direction, even its common decency.
You don't so much as wiggle a finger.
There's a lot of people saying a lot of things, but in the end, you gotta listen to yourself.
In that moment, Elvis the man was sacrificed, and Elvis the God was born.
Hello, Austin.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, but not so good as you. I mean, you gotta be pretty excited. I know that you're very busy, so thank you very much for the interview.
Oh, thank you.
This is the role of a lifetime. And yeah. First you have to just you were let's say, competing with other more famous actors. Back then, they were more famous than you at least. Then you got the role, then you have to prepare intensely for the role. Then you went into production. Then you have Cannes, the Cannes Festival with the standing ovation. But now the movie is opening for general audiences. There's going to be another step, right? Because I was checking just the commentaries in YouTube under the trailers, and some people love you, some people love the movie already. Some people say, oh, he doesn't look like Elvis. So how are you feeling right now?
You know, I feel really grateful because everybody that I've been talking to has been having a really moving experience watching the film. And after Priscilla and Lisa Marie saw it and they felt the way that they did, it just made me feel such a relief, you know. And I know that in the beginning I had a lot of those same feelings, like this unrealistic expectation that I can contort my face to look identical to Elvis, to where you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between my face and his. And I really believed at a certain point that I could do that. And for one, we don't want the caricature of him. We don't want the wax museum version of him.
Right, yeah.
We want to meet his soul. And if I've been the one who's been hired to take this on, what can I do? What is my role in this? And it's to find his humanity. It's to find that soul. And so that's what I set out to do. So every day, you know, I didn't do anything else for 2 years, and I just set out to try to find the truth of him and to you know, feel all the aspects of him, you know? And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and that includes the mannerism, the voice he has, but also sometimes the voice he had when he was singing, because I know that you guys use many of the original Elvis recording, but in the first part of the movie, is you singing. So that was important for you because, I know that you sung already probably some of the TV series, Are You There, Chelsea? There's a video in YouTube where you're...
That wasn't even, I don't even know if that was me singing.
Oh, wasn't you?
Yeah, I don't think it actually was. But yeah,
you're kind of a musician, but not openly, you know. You do.
Music was always a very private thing to me. Music was like therapy to me. It was the thing that I would spend 8 hours in my room playing the guitar or singing. I would only ever sing for the people very, very close to me, and I was always so shy. So for me, it was going back to that thing of why did Elvis do the things that he did? Why did he move in the way that he did? Why did he sing in the way that he did? And music was the way often that he expressed himself.
Quisiera representarlo, señor Presley. ¿Está listo para volar?
Estoy listo para volar.
Mañana toda Norteamérica hablará de Elvis Presley.
Señor Presley, no se mueva mucho durante las tomas.
Si no me muevo, no puedo cantar.
Music was everything to him. So in order to get in touch with him, I felt it was my responsibility to be able to sing as much of it as I possibly could. So I prepared as though I was going to be singing everything in the film. And so, I knew that all the 50s was gonna be me, and because it is, because that was recorded on acetate. It's mono. We couldn't use it in the film. And then my voice blends in with his at certain points in the film, and then, you know, Unchained Melody, especially for the reason that, you know, a couple weeks later he's not alive anymore. So to hear his voice in that moment, I think, is really impactful.
Well, you did a great job.
Thank you, thank you.
And what kind of music do you usually listen to? What is your favorite type of music? You don't have to say rock and roll just because we're doing the Elvis thing.
Yeah, I mean, during that period of time, all I listened to was the influences that Elvis had, you know.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It was a lot of Sister Rosetta Tharpe and Big Mama Thornton and Howlin' Wolf and just all the great music of that time. I mean, so I listen to a wide variety of music. You know, I love jazz. I love Miles Davis and you know, Chet Baker, and I also love more modern music, like Radiohead is one of my favorite artists. And
so for me, one of the most interesting aspects of the movie is the way it portrays like Elvis, let's say, social side. There's been a lot of like people writing about it. There's been a lot of controversy too. Some people at one point say, "Oh, he just was just kind of stealing music from the African American community." This movie showed how well accepted he was there, and then he was hanging out there in Beale Street and everything. And he was surrounded by those guys. But then it showed something even more interesting, that's the way he was trying in subtle ways to support the African American community during the civil rights movement and everything. Yeah. Was that something some people still don't acknowledge that, you know?
Yeah, that was vital. That was everything. It was all about putting his life in context. And we do not have Elvis without black music or black culture. His musical influences, his spiritual influences, his you know, his clothing. So much of the fiber of his being was being a little kid who's dirt poor, growing up in one of a few white houses in a black neighborhood, and before there's any societal ideas that are coming to your mind, he's just a little kid hanging out with his friends and ending up finding the things that he loves most. But I think it's also important that things are addressed in the film, like when he goes to Club Handy, which happens to be the place that's where he recharges. That's where he feels the most himself. That's where he feels inspired and where he can escape from all those ideas about Elvis Presley and come back to his roots. You know, that's where he feels the most alive. But when he's talking to B.B. King about the fact that he loves Little Richard, and he says, you know, I'd love to record one of his songs one day. And B.B. says, well, if you do, you'll make a whole lot more money than that kid could ever dream of. That is a really important thing to address, that disparity that, and that is so unfair and needs to be put in context. But also, this film then becomes this lens that we can say, in which ways have we grown and in which ways have we not as a society? And what can we learn from? There's also the fact that Elvis was never he was never a political figure in the way that, say, Marlon Brando was at the time. You know, he instead viewed himself as an entertainer, and the way that he spoke was through music. So that's why, but you look at anything in his life, his musical choices, from the moment after he gets divorced, choosing to sing Separate Ways and Always on My Mind, to while the civil rights movement is happening, deciding that I need to sing a song that speaks to this, and so he sings If I Can Dream, or he sings In the Ghetto just shortly after. He spoke through his music because he was never much of a verbal man in that way. And it's a cautionary tales in ways in which we need to stand up for what we believe in and what is right. But it's also an inspiring story in the way that in the moments when people tried to keep him more in a box and he rebelled against that and sang songs that he was told not to. So there's a lot in that.
Can you talk a little bit about Tom Hanks? Because his acting is very, very interesting too. I mean, he played this controversial manager, and then he got to wear all this prosthetic even more than you. How was working with a legend like him?
He's the greatest. He's just the best. He's so kind and open and generous, and he was my hero, you know, he still is, and you never know with your heroes if you're gonna be able to actually collaborate or if you're gonna be looking at him the whole time going, that's Tom Hanks. And he very early on was vulnerable with me and opened up, and it allowed for us to be colleagues who then could get down to business and say, what is the relationship between these two men, and explore the complexity of it, because he's not, it's too overly simplistic to call him a villain. You know, you gotta look at the fact that there's a reason why Elvis was loyal to him. There's a reason, and loyal to a fault at a certain point. There's tragedies in Elvis's life because of the fact that he wasn't creatively challenged at a certain point, and he never got to tour the world. That is absolutely heartbreaking. But you also gotta look at the fact that after Elvis loses his mother, the Colonel's there for him. And he becomes this voice that Elvis listens to as far as what he should do or that sort of thing. And so it's so complex, their relationship, and that's really a lot of what this film explores.
Pronto cumpliré 40 y nadie se acordará de mí. Debo volver a ser quien soy.
¿Y quién eres, Elvis?
Debo aprovechar esto al máximo mientras pueda. Todo podría terminar en un segundo.
Somos iguales, tú y yo. Somos dos niños solitarios buscando ser eternos. El mejor espectáculo del planeta.
Elvis abandonó el recinto.